Are you an introvert and you have a big interview coming up? Well, stick around because in this video, I'm going to share with you how to overcome those interview nerves as an introvert. Hey everybody, it's Brian from A Life After Layoff, and today I want to share with you a fairly requested video on how to overcome interview nerves and present yourself effectively, especially if you're somebody that's introverted. And I sympathize with this topic because I myself am an introvert and have had to overcome my introverted tendencies, especially when it comes to interviewing and marketing myself. So in this video, I'm going to share with you a few tips that I myself have implemented to overcome my interview anxiety. But before we get too far into it, if you're ready to reclaim the power and act like the CEO of your career, make sure you sign up for my free weekly newsletter. And in it, I share concise, actionable tips that allow you to reclaim your power, give you interview tips and techniques, and a deeper insider's look into the hiring process and how you can position yourself with strength and authority throughout your career. Again, it's completely free, so I hope to see you there. All right, so if you're not one of those people who has the natural gift of gab, unfortunately, the deck is a little stacked against you because oftentimes it's not the person who's most experienced or most skilled who gets the job offer. It's the person who best markets themselves and conveys their fit in the most effective manner for that specific employer's needs. And keep in mind, this varies from job to job. One employer could be looking for one thing, and a similar employer in a different market could be looking for something very different. So one of the things that has really helped me is making sure that I'm very prepared when I walk in the door. I'm reviewing the job description. I'm making sure that I clearly understand what the employer is looking for. I'm also reviewing my own resume to understand what my value case is. Maybe some of those projects that I've worked on that are related to the employer and what they might be interested in learning about. I'm also reviewing the company, the potential division that I'd be working in, and the interviewers that I would be meeting with throughout my interview panel. Because the more prepared you are, the more relaxed you're going to be in that interview setting, and the better you're going to be able to carry yourself throughout the rest of the interview process. And of course, great preparation also means that you've really flushed out what value you bring to the table. And one tip that has really helped me get into a conversational flow with my interviewer, ideally it's a back and forth dialogue and not just I ask you a question, you answer, I ask you a question, you answer. What I've done is consider everything that I'm going to be speaking about in terms of short stories. Just think, when you're at a party or when you're meeting somebody for the first time, generally people like stories because when you can convey your thoughts in story format, it draws people in, gets them more interested in what you're saying, and as a result, it's going to lower the nerves that you might be experiencing because you're going to be in a two-way dialogue. It's hopefully going to be just like playing tennis. You're going to volley back and forth and hopefully have a good cadence going on. And taking it a step further, don't look at the interviewer as some sort of mythological creature who is there to judge and grade you and determine your fate. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, sure, they probably hold that perceived power, but the person across the table from you is no better than you are. They're just a little further down the path than you might be. So when you keep that in mind, it becomes a little bit easier to try to relate to them. And a little tip that I've used to help ease the nerves when I'm sitting in front of an interviewer is to imagine that I'm meeting them at a coffee shop. It's a new friend, a new acquaintance, and I'm just rapping back and forth with them. And it's that informal dialogue that's still somewhat formal because they're a new person you've never met before. Yeah, it's not so stuffy and rigid. Hopefully there's a little bit of laughter, a little bit of banter going back and forth, and again, conveying those stories in an effective way. Because what you'll do is you'll increase your likability, and that's a big thing when it comes to interviewing, especially for those introverts. And that's why it's so important to learn how to break the ice. Figure out ways to generate small talk, especially early in the interview where you're building that rapport. Consider what you have in common with the interviewer. Maybe it's a commonality in the space that you're in. Hopefully when you go and read through their LinkedIn profile or do a little bit of research about them, there's something interesting about their background that you can comment on or relate to. And if not, they certainly have a vested interest in the job that you'll be interviewing for. So that's another opportunity for you to be able to engage with them in that regard. But as you're doing this prep and you're getting ready to communicate with another person in a more volley back and forth manner, you want to make sure that you're practicing just like a good tennis player would. They would practice over and over again for different scenarios that they might encounter, but you don't want to be so rehearsed because if they serve the ball in a place that you're not expecting it and you're only rehearsed in one particular move, you're probably going to lose that match. So it's really important to practice but not rehearse. Because when I've interviewed effectively myself, I've never done well when I've memorized my lines. I've always tried to get the context of what I'm going to say, but I'm not going line by line, because inevitably, if you mess up your lines, you start having this inner monologue that starts going, uh-oh, I messed up the interview, I'm screwing things up, I just blew the interview, and then you get all in your head and you go on tilt. And us introverts tend to get in our head a little bit more than we care to admit. And I understand firsthand as an introvert how difficult it can be to try to get into a conversational flow with somebody that you just met. And that's why it's important to be friendly, but don't fake it. Do your best to try to establish rapport. Don't force something that isn't there, but then get back to business as usual and make sure that you're really prepared with great answers for the interview questions. Because when you start to fake it, it comes across as inauthentic. Nobody is buying it. The interviewer knows that you're out of your element. You know that you're out of your element. And chances are you're going to get in your head and you're going to start to stumble. So therefore, I'd recommend falling back to what you do best. Take some time, think through your answer before you start to speak. The interviewer understands that you're nervous. The interviewer understands that you may need to pull together your thoughts and collect. And there's nothing wrong with a pause where you're really reflecting on what you're about to deliver. Because let's face it, sometimes us introverts end up talking before we're even done forming the thought in our head. And it usually doesn't end up very well and can make for some awkward conversation. So again, it's perfectly acceptable to take a few minutes to collect your thoughts. Make sure that you're delivering the right answer, and you can even ask clarifying questions if you're not quite sure what the interviewer is getting at. And if you do mess up, get back on the horse as quickly as possible. Try to compartmentalize it as best you can. And I know this is easier said than done, because when you trip up and things start to seem like they're derailing, it can throw you on tilt for the rest of the interview. You get out of your groove, and the whole time you're thinking to yourself, I just bombed that last interview question. They're already writing down how terrible of a fit I am and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, it's simply not true. If you check out my other video on how I bombed my Amazon interview, you'll know the entire story there. But just keep in mind that it's likely not as bad as you think. If you can somehow compartmentalize your thoughts and get back on the horse, and know that it is very possible to salvage an interview that you think is going off the rails. Trust me, you'd be surprised at some of the feedback that gets written down in the notes, and it's not nearly as bad as you think. But the number one thing that I want to stress is practice, practice, practice. Preparation is absolutely the key and the introvert's best friend. And if you're somebody that really struggles with your interviewing, systems are a real lifesaver. Having a system that you can follow that allows you to recall your interview answers a lot easier takes a lot of the stress off of you. And especially if you can figure out what exactly the interviewer is trying to assess from you, and you can deliver the best possible answers. I actually created a few resources to really help out in these scenarios. And this is not just for introverts, it's really for everybody, but introverts will particularly benefit from it. The first one is called the Ultimate Job Seeker Bootcamp. It takes you from job search, then through each round of the interview, and then takes you through the offer process. And as an added bonus, we make sure that you don't leave a single dime on the table. So that's worth its weight in gold right there. And if you're not ready for the masterclass, I created a more consolidated interview skills training called the 48-hour interview crash course. It's designed to teach you exactly how to get ready for that interview in as little as 2 days. It's got a lot of great techniques in order to help you feel really comfortable, especially if you're that introvert and you want to impress. So to my introverted friends out there, hopefully you found some value in this video and it'll allow you to relax a little bit as you go into your next interview. If you follow what I suggested, you'll do just fine, and make sure that you go into the interview relaxed and prepared. And if you like this video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. And of course, I always appreciate those subscribes, because that really does help me continue to bring this content to you. As always, appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one.